Hello, this is Pearl, and this is about the 10th take of trying to do this. So I apologise if I feel a bit like, ugh. This is my book. It's a very nice book. It's the first book that I wrote and published, and I'm doing this video about how to write your first book or about writing your first novel, whatever, because I met a lot of people last week who struggle with their first book or are having difficulty, and at the time I was kind of like, I felt a bit embarrassed to say, you know, I've now written this many books. Depending on how you count it, it's between like 6 and 30 because some of the books are like, you know, I'm going to cut them down and that kind of thing. Some of them are very big books that can then be cut down into like 5, 6 or 13 other books. So, and also it depends on how you define a book, you know, because one of my last books was only like 20,000 words. And I've definitely written some short books, and I love Seth Godin when he writes about that, and he talks about, you know, write short books, write the amount that is relevant to the subject. Don't worry if it's too short, too long, that kind of thing. Some of the best books in the world are very short, and some are very, very long. So, but when you start writing your first book, you've often got a word count in your head, which is like 70,000 words, you know, which is the standard length of a novel. I've seen a lot of books published which are kind of sneak around the kind of 70,000 word because they use big print and they use graphics and they use this and that and the other. And I would just say, look, don't worry about it. If you want to write a short book, write a short book. If you want to write a long book, write a long book. And often you won't know until you get started how much you've got to say. Because I know that when I start writing, often I write my first draft and then afterwards I'm like, okay, I want to add stuff, or I might want to cut stuff. And I've just reread my new book in first draft form, and I'm like, hang on, I think I feel like I'm repeating a bit. So I want to go away, give it a rest, and take a little break, and not write anything for a while, and just give myself a chance to kind of like free up my brain. And then I'm going to go back, and I might cut that out. It might even become a shorter book. But I want to talk about, basically, the biggest problem I had when I first started writing my novel was I'd actually had, not really success, but I'd written a lot of screenplays, and, oh, I'm a bit distracted because over there's bunnies. Can you see? I want to show you the little bunnies. Can you see bunnies? Or they might be squirrels. They might be, I don't know, it looks like bunnies to me. They're brown and they're not leaving the ground. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the bunnies. I'm very tempted to go over there and check them out. I'm not distracted. I'm not easily distracted, sure, I'm not. Yeah, right. Anyway, writing your first novel. Sorry, so I had a little bit of success. I've been writing screenplays. And actually that was easier for me because before I started writing screenplays, I was reading them. So I was reading them for a film company, and I was doing that one-page critique, which kind of goes, yeah, this is quite good, blah, 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 da, da, da. So I'd read a lot of shocking screenplays at this point. I read so many bad screenplays. I was like, yeah, I can write a better one than this. Of course I can. So what I remember is having to write it on an electronic typewriter and then having to reformat like every 5-10 pages when I wanted to print it out. So it took me like a really long day to print my first copy of my first screenplay, which actually took me longer to print out that than to write one of my most recent books, you know. So things do get easier. It does get easier, and you've got to remember this is your first one. So it's like, yeah, of course you're going to go through various blocks and problems and things like that, and just even things like how you save it and how you format and all that crap. But the good thing about when you do that is, oh, there's a dog in the back. You know, it's great, it's exciting, it's the first time you've done it, and that's brilliant, and you should enjoy it. Don't get so hung up on the problems and negatives and stuff like that, because it's like, you know, I'm sure there's a dog called Rigby around here somewhere. But anyway, see, look, and if you're trying to write and then somebody starts doing that, you're like, oh, I lose my train of thought. It's okay, just go with it. So yeah, I was a screenplay writer, and I'd been shortlisted for some awards, and then I went and I made my own feature film with a screenplay. And so I wanted to write a novel, and this is what I was telling myself at the time, which was, well, maybe I'm just not a novel writer, I'm just a screenplay writer, and that's my genre, and that's where I'm going to fit, and that's where I sit. And that's what I was telling myself. And also I've always had a big problem with like plot, you know, working out the plot. And it's different for a screenplay because you kind of, the plot is like, you know, that's the whole idea of the film, you know. But anyway, I read Stephen King's book on writing, and I got 2 things out of that that really helped me. And number one was, you don't have to write a plot. He starts with a character and a situation and then just follows it through. And that's the integrity of writing, is if you follow the character, you're going to end up in the right place. And I've seen that with TV series and things like that, where you start with a true character and a true situation, and you're going to end up with a true plot, if you know what I mean. And I sort of sometimes think, how do they know? How do they know that this was like, oh man, they knew this at the beginning? They didn't. The writer didn't know. But when you create real characters, you know when something goes against your character. You know what the character would and wouldn't do. So you just follow that. Anyway, so that was, this plot thing. I had like, oh, I can't write a plot. Da 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 da. Oh, it is bunnies. Anyway, so the two things is, one, I had the idea, I'm a screenplay writer, I'm not a novel writer. So like that really held me back. And that's rubbish, complete rubbish. And that was all in my head. So if you've got something like that, where you're saying, I can't write a book, I'm not a writer, kick it into touch right now. You take that belief and just go and smack it up the bum and just say, that's rubbish. That's complete rubbish. Anyone can be a writer, If you find it too difficult to write the book you're writing, go and write a different book in the meantime, That's all really cool. And that's it. How did I write my first novel? I sat down, I said, Stephen King writes 2,000 words a day, 70,000 words, 35 days. I'll write a 70,000 word book. And I did. And that was my first draft. And once I had the first draft, then I could finesse it. Then I could see what was missing and work it. And then I could work it out. And it was a book. It's a pretty darn good book, actually. I started reading it today. It's rather nice. But that's the thing I would say is, don't worry. If you want to write a 70,000 word book, you can do it. If you want to write a book that's any length, you can do it. If you've got some voice in your head saying you're not a writer, there's a guy who wrote a book because of blinking. Had very little control over his body. He wrote a book just by blinking. And you're so much. If you can write faster than a guy can blink, you're going to have a better time of writing that book, aren't you? Really. So don't believe the bullshit. Don't believe the lies that you're telling yourself about, I'm not this, I'm not that. And the last tip I'll give you is again, it's from On Writing. Buy the book, read that book. It's the best book ever. Stephen King, On Writing. He should know. He's amazing. He's a great writer. And that is write with the door closed. So your first draft, you write. You don't even have to show it to anybody. That's your first draft, and you write with the door closed. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. So you can play, you can be creative, you can take your characters and the whole story, and you might just cut that whole subplot. But write with the door closed. That's the way I write. And then second draft, you write with the door open. You edit with the door open, so you can open the door and you say, right, I'm going to cut that because that's going to offend people. And when you write your first draft, don't care about any of that. Just write it, and then afterwards you can trim it, you can tailor it. And one of the things I realised recently is I was writing for me. I was writing to this person. I was writing to somebody, this sort of ephemeral reader that needed my help, and I realised it was me all the time. That's pretty cool. So I've been writing my own books all this time, and I've actually literally been writing the books that I needed to read, even though I didn't know it at the time. So I bless my writing. It's been amazing, and my writing has taken me to incredible places. I wouldn't be here without my writing. But now's the time that I want to embrace, getting it out to market and publishing it and letting it take me to the next place in my life. And your books can take you amazing places. I read books when I was a kid. They took me to incredible places.